"Ma'am, the building's burning and someone's still inside. Do we wait, or do we let him die?" The voice sliced through the tension like a knife through frost. Rose Kingsley didn't blink. Outside her corner office window, Boston was buried beneath a blanket of snow, cold and merciless. But it was the chaos inside her company's data center that sent adrenaline pulsing through her veins. "Evacuate the floor," she said firmly, "and tell fire control to prepare for a data breach lockdown." The technician hesitated. "Ma'am, someone's already gone in after him." She spun around. "Who?" "The night guard, Victor." He didn't wait. 3 floors below, smoke billowed like storm clouds, thick and blinding. Emergency lights flashed across charred metal and glass. Amidst the roar of flames and sirens, one man moved with eerie calm. Victor Reed was a quiet shadow on normal days, the kind of man people walked past without seeing. But now, with his jacket soaked and face streaked with soot, he looked like someone risen from fire itself. He found the trapped engineer curled under a server bay, coughing, terrified. Without a word, Victor pulled him to his feet, threw a coat over his shoulders, and led him out through a maintenance corridor. Only he seemed to remember. If this moment moved you, or if you've ever made a split-second decision that changed everything, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story, and don't forget to subscribe. Outside, paramedics swarmed. The snow didn't stop falling. It hissed as it landed on the warm metal of fire engines. From behind the crowd, Rose caught a glimpse of Victor, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp despite the smoke. Something about him didn't match the story she'd been told. Something about the way he scanned the chaos like a soldier reading a battlefield. Not fear, not panic, calculation. Later that evening, after the fire had been controlled and systems stabilized, Rose called him up. Her office smelled of burnt wires and cinnamon tea. She didn't offer him a seat. "You disobeyed protocol," she said. Victor stood without shifting. "The boy would have died. You're not paid to make those calls." "No, ma'am, I'm not." She studied him. His face bore no apology, just calm defiance. "Where did you train?" she asked. He didn't blink. "Private sector security. Contract work. Ever serve?" A long silence. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "what do you want to know?" "The truth." "Then maybe you should ask different questions." That night, Rose sat alone in the executive lounge, nursing a glass of rye and scrolling through databases that should have had every detail on every hire. But Victor Reed didn't exist. Not in her company's files, not in payroll, not even in background checks. Either someone had wiped his trail, or he never meant to leave one. She stared out at the snow. It reminded her of Afghanistan, oddly enough white, quiet, and hiding too many things under the surface. The next morning, the story hit local news. Security guard rescues engineer in Kingsley Tower blaze. PR wanted her to give a statement. She refused. Not until she understood who or what Victor Reed really was. She didn't wait long. That evening, while the building emptied and the world resumed its usual routine of forgetting near tragedy, Rose walked down to the front lobby. Victor was there reading a worn paperback, boots polished, coffee untouched. "You always read during your shift?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Only when it's quiet." "What are you reading?" "The Things They Carried." She raised an eyebrow. "You like war stories?" "I like stories about survival," he replied, "especially when no one expects them." She stepped closer. "I dug into your file. It doesn't exist." "I'm not surprised." "So who are you, really?" "The guy who walked into a fire when everyone else ran." He looked at her, steady and unflinching. "Sometimes that's enough." She didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. For several long minutes, they stood in silence, an executive and a ghost. She saw in him what most wouldn't: the restraint, the hyper-awareness, the calculated economy of movement. Not a man with secrets, a man built from them. "Why take a job like this?" she finally asked. "To disappear," he said. "Did it work?" "Not anymore." The elevator pinged behind them, but neither moved. Outside, Boston glittered under snow and sodium light. Something had shifted, not just in the company, not just in the data center, but in her. Rose Kingsley, the woman who trusted no one and needed no one, now found herself wondering what kind of past made a man like Victor Reed choose invisibility. Whatever it was It had just walked into her life, and it wasn't going to leave quietly. The next morning, Rose Kingsley sat alone in the boardroom, staring at a black screen filled with system logs. Coffee steamed beside her, untouched. Every few seconds, her eyes flicked to the timestamp on the data breach alerts, then back to the camera feed from the night before. There, in grainy black and white, Victor's silhouette could be seen disappearing into the smoke, unflinching, decisive. She watched it again and again. It didn't make sense. No hesitation, no panic, just instinct. Military instinct. But she had no proof. Not yet. Her assistant, James, entered quietly. "We've patched the first firewall. There's still activity in Sector 7. Rose nodded, distracted. "Keep Mercer Tech off our back. If they call again, tell them the audit will be delayed another 72 hours. James hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure we shouldn't escalate? This breach wasn't amateur." "I'm aware," she replied, eyes narrowing. "That's why we're not involving law enforcement. Not yet." Later that afternoon, she descended into the parking garage alone. The hum of generators echoed off concrete walls. Victor was inspecting a control panel near the service elevator, sleeves rolled, tools neatly arranged beside him. He didn't look up when she approached. "You don't seem surprised to see me," she said. "I heard your heels 3 seconds ago. 5th floor elevator has a squeak in the cable. You always take that one." She smirked. "Are you always this observant? Old habits? Military habits? Some habits don't come with paperwork." She stepped closer. "Victor, last night, you didn't just walk into a fire. You knew exactly where that engineer would be. You knew where the backup vent was. You knew how to reroute emergency power. That's not basic training." He finally looked at her. "You want answers. I get that. But some questions, Miss Kingsley, aren't meant to be asked in daylight. Then let's meet in the dark." That night, in a small coffee shop tucked into a quiet alley behind the company's tower, they sat facing each other over black coffee. No music played. Just the ticking of an old wall clock and the occasional hiss of milk steaming. Victor stared into his cup. 10 years ago, he began slowly, I was part of a SEAL unit assigned to covert extractions overseas. We weren't on any official record. Our job wasn't to bring people home. It was to erase problems before they started. Rose listened without interrupting. One mission went bad, real bad. 2 men died. I made the call to extract early. Command blamed me. So I disappeared. Changed my name. Found quiet work. I kept my head down. Until now. "And why now?" she asked. "Because someone inside your company is trying to burn it down. From the inside." "Why?" "Because Kingsley Corp is sitting on something valuable. Not money. Leverage. Digital leverage. Data on people who matter." She went still. "You've seen it?" "Number. But I know the pattern. And whoever's in your system, they're not doing this alone." She leaned back, processing. "Why not come to me earlier?" "Because I didn't know if you were clean." "And now?" "I still don't. But I know you care about your people. You stayed when others ran. That means something." She met his gaze. "Victor, I need your help. You already have it." The next 48 hours blurred into long nights and flickering screens. Victor worked quietly from the shadows, patching blind spots in their security grid, installing his own custom surveillance layers without informing the IT team. Rose cleared his access with a simple override code and told no one. Together they watched and waited. Small anomalies began to appear, logins at odd hours from senior-level accounts, encrypted messages leaving the internal servers through rarely used maintenance protocols. Then they caught something. A name, Lance Mercer. Rose's hands clenched. "He used to be my CTO. We dated for a year. He left to start Mercer Tech and swore there were no hard feelings." Victor frowned. "He's not working alone." "Then we find out who is." Late that evening, as snow began falling again, Rose brought Victor a cup of coffee to the basement server room where he was monitoring a live data tunnel. "You always drink it black," she said. "How do you know?" "You always dump the cream into the plant by the door." He chuckled softly. "You've been watching me. Only when you're being invisible." He took the cup, but didn't sip. "You know this won't end with evidence on a screen, right?" "I know. It'll end with someone trying to silence you. They've tried before. And I'm still here." He studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, he said, "There's something else. I recognize the coding signature in last night's attack. It's not Mercer's. It's military grade. Someone's funding him. Someone big. How big? Big enough that if we go forward, you'll need to decide whether this company survives or whether the truth does." She looked him square in the eyes. "If I have to choose between legacy and integrity, I'll burn the legacy to the ground." A silence passed. The kind of silence only people who face the worst of life can sit in without fear. Victor set down the cup. "Then we start tomorrow. But there's one more thing." "What?" "You'll need to pretend not to trust me. If I'm too close, they'll see me coming." She hesitated. "You think I can fake that?" "Number. But I think you're good at hiding what matters, just like me." And just like that, a fragile alliance was born between a CEO with everything to lose and a man with nothing left to protect except the truth. The boardroom lights cast a cold hue across the polished table as Rose sat in the Monday morning meeting pretending nothing had changed. She wore her usual steel gray blazer, the one that made her look more judge than executive. Around her sat the executive council men and women in tailored suits, whispering about the fire, the breach, and the whispered rumors of a security hero with no record. Rose listened, observed, measured. Across the table, CFO Daryl Mendez was too quiet. His fingers tapped in odd rhythm against his coffee mug. Head of Operations, Elaine Shaw, avoided eye contact altogether, and Stephen Parlow, her head of compliance, kept wiping sweat from his upper lip despite the room's chill. Victor had been right. The traitor wasn't outside. He or she sat here comfortable, trusted, well-dressed. She called the meeting to order and laid out a new narrative. The fire had been contained, operations were under review, and a third-party audit was forthcoming. She didn't say a word about Victor, or the real reason she hadn't called federal cybersecurity. Secrets, she had learned, made better weapons than headlines. That afternoon, Victor operated from the shadows of the underground security room, his temporary command center lit only by soft monitors. A digital map of Kingsley Tower glowed in front of him, motion sensors blinking in and out as employees moved about like predictable chess pieces. Rose entered without a word. He turned slightly. Parlow's badge was used to access the mainframe at 2:12 a.m. last night. "Parlow?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Can you prove it was him and not a clone?" "Working on it. But I traced the login path it rerouted through a server registered in Jakarta. Military-grade obfuscation, but lazy. Someone's in a rush." Rose's jaw tightened. "Then it's starting." "It's already started," Victor replied. "You just weren't looking before. And now? Now we make them look back." He showed her footage. Parlow entering the elevator after midnight, no briefcase, no jacket, expression too calm. 2 floors later, he exited, but the timestamp flickered. "Tampered feed?" she asked. "More like spliced. He spent 9 minutes in a blind spot on floor 12. Storage. Number. That floor's under renovation, but it houses old server vaults. Perfect place to upload without being noticed. And he knew that. Which means he's done this before. That night, Rose didn't sleep. Instead, she walked the halls of the nearly empty building, nodding to night staff, forcing herself to look calm. In her head, the pieces rearranged themselves. Who gave Parlow access? Who else knew about the vaults? Why now? Her father's old quote echoed faintly, "Don't chase the thief, study the silence." The next morning, Victor left a coded message in her inbox. Blackbird roosting at dawn. It was their signal. Surveillance confirmed Parlow had scheduled an early private meeting in the Level 3 conference hall. Alone. Victor tapped into the wall panel feed. There, they saw Parlow pacing, phone in hand. "Number. She doesn't suspect a thing. Yet," he whispered. "We've got maybe a week before the breach window closes. I'll deliver the dump tomorrow night." Rose exhaled slowly. Proof. But Victor didn't look relieved. "He's not working for Mercer Tech." "What?" "I know that voice he's speaking to. General Connor Maddox. Retired. Black Ops contractor. Mercer's just a distraction. Maddox wants your archives." Rose felt her blood freeze. The archives weren't public knowledge. Even most senior staff didn't know what they housed. Decades of encrypted corporate contracts, legal evidence, whistleblower protection files, and the black ledger from the 1992nd Kingsley congressional scandal that nearly ruined her family name. If that gets out, she whispered, Maddox could topple politicians, rewrite history, and disappear. Victor nodded. Which means we don't have a week, we have hours. They crafted a plan. That evening, while Parlow believed he was alone, Rose staged an impromptu fire drill. The building cleared in under 8 minutes. Everyone except Parlow, who was intercepted on his way to the vault by Victor in plain clothes. There was no confrontation, just a glance. A flick of recognition. Victor said one word, "Don't." Parlow paled, dropped the flash drive, raised his hands. Security escorted him out silently. The media none the wiser. No sirens, no press, just silence. Back in the executive suite, Rose poured 2 glasses of rye, handed one to Victor. "You saved my company." "It's not saved yet," he said. "We just slowed the bleeding. What happens now? Parlow will lawyer up, Maddox will vanish, and someone else will try again. That's how these things work." "And us?" she asked softly. "You stay clean. Keep the company running, and I disappear again." Just like that? That was the deal. But she didn't let him walk away that night. Not completely. As the building emptied once more and snow gathered quietly on the windowsill, she reached out. "Victor, I don't want silence anymore." He paused, turning slowly. "Then you'll need to fight for the noise." He left. She watched. But something in her had changed, and something in him had broken open, however slightly. 2 strangers once, now bound by truth, by fire, and by the promise of something unfinished. Neither of them knew then that their greatest test was still to come. The first light of dawn barely intruded through the heavy blinds in Rose's office when her phone buzzed with a single word. Mercer Tech. She stared at it, no message, no number. Her heartbeat quickened. She tapped it, opened nothing. This was how the chessboard started to shift. 30 minutes later, an email arrived in her secure inbox. A single attachment labeled Confidence, a video clip showing Parlow, head of compliance, meeting General Connor Maddox in a secluded cafe near Logan Airport the evening before recent events. Maddox, imposing in a tailored coat, pulled something from his briefcase, a flash drive. Parlow slid it across the table. Their exchange was silent, professional, loaded. Rose's hands trembled. She forwarded the file to Victor, who responded immediately. "I'll handle it." By lunchtime, the boardroom was empty. Rose excused herself. Downstairs, Victor was waiting at a delivery entrance, a decline-lit corridor where delivery vans idled and drivers wore insulated jackets. He handed her a black duffel bag. "For safekeeping. This goes nowhere digital." She once again felt the strange certainty that whatever Victor did, it worked. "Will this be enough?" she asked. He shut the bag, unflinching. "It'll buy time, but someone will notice it's gone." She nodded, then asked quietly, "Why this risk for me?" He hesitated. "Because people like you deserve better than cleanup crews and cover-ups." She blinked, not expecting that. He turned and walked away into shifting shadows. By mid-afternoon, rumors were swirling. Parlow had resigned suddenly. Mercer Tech publicly distanced itself. General Maddox was off the radar. The quiet ones always leave footprints. Rose sent a notice to James, increase security, vet everyone, and cancel tonight's charity reception. She couldn't have enemies lounging in coats while she held evidence in a duffel bag. At 4:30 p.m. her assistant knocked. "There's someone to see you," Rose steeled herself. At the door stood Elaine Shaw, head of operations, expression guarded. "I heard about Parlow," Elaine said. "What happened?" He resigned. Elaine hesitated. "Do you think Mercer Tech will retaliate?" Rose didn't hesitate. "We're under radar. Now we need to stay invisible." Elaine sighed. "I know a group of veterans, younger guys who could be hired for contract security. Discreet." Rose raised an eyebrow. "Limited contract?" Elaine nodded. "No uniforms. Civilian clothes. Background checks. No questions asked." "Rose, let that sink in. Do it." Hours later, she found herself back in that coffee shop in the alley, ready for an evening meeting she hadn't planned. Warm light and quiet jazz filled the narrow space. Victor arrived 10 minutes late, tie undone, coat slung over a chair. He looked more human tonight than the man she'd known, vulnerable maybe, or tired. He took a seat and studied her like he needed to be sure she'd made the right call. She slid the duffel bag across the table. "It's safe," she said. "And I hired the ex-vets." Victor's eyes glowed for a moment. "Good." He leaned forward. There's another thing. She braced. This all started because someone inside wanted access to old Kingsley congressional files. He tapped the table. That's not business. That's leverage. Someone's planning to go public. They want power, not money. Rose looked away, cold certainty in her veins. They want me to fold. Victor reached for her hand. You won't. Over the next 2 days, life in the tower felt like walking between shells of a city under siege. Delivery drivers were vetted, Idahos scanned twice, surveillance blind spots eliminated. The new veterans, 3 quiet men in tailored coats, stood at corners, silent, eyes watching. Employees felt it. Whispers stopped. Productivity remained steady, even Rose. Inside the secure server room, Rose and Victor worked side by side like unlikely partners. She on legal briefs and board communication, he on encrypted channels and code-level intrusion detection. One evening, they stayed late. Victor leaned against a server rack, memorizing patterns of blinking lights. Rose watched him, suddenly aware that this man had saved her company and held her safest truths and darkest fears in his pack. He moved to leave, but she stopped him. Victor, he paused, don't start a fight over me. She swallowed. I'm not, but I want to do this, together. They stood there, 2 worlds colliding, trust stretching like a bridge between them. Suddenly, the power cut like a scythe across the floor. Servers powered down. Emergency lights, phones vibrating, gross static memory flicker. The veterans tensed. Victor's stance shifted. They're trying again. He jumped to the console, scanned the mainframe. An alert popped up. Unauthorized access in Vault 12 archive level, where the old congressional files were stored. That duffel bag held physical copies she'd brought from her private off-site storage. They were sitting in that bag, beneath layers of code and evidence. Rose's pulse slammed. Victor barked orders into his mic. The veterans sprung into motion. Secure doors slid shut. Engagement protocols triggered. The facility became a maze of locked corridors and silent drills. Minutes crawled. Then footsteps heavy, purposeful from the direction of vault access. Rose watched, breath shallow, as Victor grabbed a tactical flashlight from the veteran's wagon. With me? He asked. She nodded, walking beside him. The hall was deathly quiet. The sound of their coordinated steps echoed. They rounded the corner, figures in dark jackets moving toward the vault door. Victor stepped forward, his voice low. Freeze. Security. One figure pivoted, revealing a gun. The others stopped. Shots rang out. Victor dove forward and took cover. One veteran shielded Rose, glass shattered. The vault door locked down automatically, burying them outside. The gunman hit the console beside the vault, fingers sliding across keys. Victor leapt, tackling him. A second shot. Victor grabbed the attacker's arm just as a bullet ricocheted off the metal wall. More veterans poured in, subduing 2 more figures. The full security team, alerted by Victor's command, sealed the hallway. Rose rushed forward. The attacker was disarmed, cuffed, and shoved against the wall, dazed. Victor knelt beside him, checking the gun. He stood, offering Rose his hand. She took it, voice shaking. I know, he said, but we're still standing. In. They escorted the gunman to the holding room. She watched the scene unfold. The man curled into himself, no face, no identity to the public, just a body in cuffs. In his coat pocket, Rose saw a scrap of paper flutter to the floor. She picked it up, an address in Washington, D.C., and the name Connor Maddox. She swallowed hard. They returned to the server room. The veterans had secured the duffel bag and reactivated backup protocols. Victor looked at Rose. You okay? She nodded, voice low. We just became targets. He smiled, sad, tender. Then we'll become warriors. They stood together in the cold glow of code and wires, each aware of the other's promise. They had faced fire, code, betrayal, and now bullets. But something solidified in that moment. Their alliance wasn't just about business anymore. It was survival, it was trust, and maybe beyond that it was something deeper. They didn't celebrate, they didn't even speak. But when the veterans stood guard outside with quiet resolve, Rose realized she hadn't felt truly safe until that gunfire ended. Not in her boardroom, not in the press release, but right there, and not alone. And beside her, Victor Reed, the man without records, had become her anchor. Their greatest battle had begun. The sun had barely risen when Rose slipped into the company's private parking garage. The veterans she'd hired were already positioned, patrol jackets tight against the cold. She watched them, a sense of gratitude warring with unease. Every face looked ready for war, and in truth, that's exactly what they were preparing for. Victor arrived beside her, leather bags slung over his shoulder. He didn't greet her. Instead, his eyes swept the area, scanning for threats. She noted how his posture shifted, always alert, always calculating. "We have to move the archives," he said quietly, reverberating with urgency. She nodded. In the back of her mind, she thought of contracts, board members, PR fallout. None of that mattered now. As CEO, she had a responsibility that went farther than quarterly earnings. They rode the veterans' elevator to level 1-2, where the old congressional files were stored behind a steel-reinforced door. 2 veterans stood guard. Victor keyed in a code manually, no logs, no digital trace. His fingers paused on the keypad, thumb brushing 1 digit too long. She resisted the urge to speak. She had invited him into her inner sanctum. She would not break this moment. When the door swung open, the air was stale. The box file they'd retrieved lay inside a wheeled cart. Rose touched a faded sticker. Property of U.S. Goft. She shivered, not from cold. Those files were dynamite proof of wrongdoing at the highest level. She exhaled slowly. Victor locked the door behind them. Together, they wheeled the cart toward a waiting van marked Kingsley Logistics. The veterans lit up the way, silent as shadows. Back in her office, they laid the files across her antique mahogany desk, the one passed down from her grandfather, who insisted everyone face their work honestly. Victor watched while she lifted a folder and unfolded a document stamped top secret. Her lips parted. It was audit reports, full names, dates, and sums. Names she recognized. Former senators, CEOs, lobbyists, 1,000 different scandals, all hidden for decades. "If that gets out," Victor began. She interrupted. "It won't," but her voice shook. They worked in silence, piecing together relationships, motives, connections. Victor digitized key pages they'd gone double-layered, physical files, offline storage, and encrypted drives off-site. Rose kept glancing at him, the man who'd risked defying protocol to save her, who'd risked leaving her alone after the fire, who'd risked everything again defending this building. She wasn't sure when the line between protector and partner blurred, but right now, she needed both. At noon, she found Victor in the lobby, hands in his coat pockets. He looked up, eyes tired. "We need to tell the board." She blinked. "Now?" "Yes." She thought of him walking in no suit, no tie, just his posture and presence, and she thought of the boardroom, polished wood, expensive eyes. She squared her shoulders. "Let's go." He stayed behind as she entered the glass-walled boardroom. 11 faces turned toward her. Shock, curiosity, concern. She simply nodded. Without preamble, she said, "I'd like to introduce someone." Victor stepped in. Silence swallowed the room. She continued, "This is Victor Reed. He has uncovered the depth of our vulnerabilities and the truth about these archives." She gestured to the veterans. "If you want proof, ask these men what he did last night." CFO Mendez swallowed. "These documents, we've never seen them." Bones shifted in chairs. Rose leaned forward. "That's the problem." She waited, watching as disbelief gave way to anxiety. Parlo's resignation, Maddox's operatives, everything cascaded into focus. She said softly, "We need to fix this, secure these assets, and protect this company." Elaine stood. "Agreed," she said. "But we'll need legal protection." Rose nodded. "Already arranged. Federal counsel, whistleblower safe harbor." Eyes turned to Victor. She said, "Then we trust him." The air tightened. He nodded once. "I accept." Later, Victor and Rose stood outside Kingsley Tower, the afternoon sun reflecting off frosted windows. He exhaled loudly. "Thank you." She touched his arm lightly. "We did it." His voice was low. "Almost." Fear lurked in his eyes. She followed his gaze down the street to a black SUV with tinted windows. The engine idled, silent. "They're watching." Rose looked. Cold settled deep. "Then we move first." "Aye." They took separate routes. Rose to the legal department, Victor and the veterans to relocate the digital files to a secure server in a safe house outside Boston. She watched him go, his silhouette framed by armored veterans, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. She wasn't just a CEO anymore, she was their guardian, their shield, their partner in war. By the time the sun set, the files were secured, the veterans gone back to civilian life. Rose sat in her office, exhausted, but alive. She looked at the mahogany desk, now empty, but lined with potential. She knew the nights ahead would be long and dark, but she also knew she wasn't alone. Victor returned quietly. He didn't knock. He stood in the doorway. Rose looked up. She smiled, tiny, cautious. He stepped forward and held up a single photograph, an old sepia image of him in uniform, flanked by two smiling men. Before it got complicated, she took it gently. They trusted you. He nodded. I almost forgot how that felt. Aye. They stared at the photo, two people bound by duty and memory, stuck in the twilight between who they were and who they needed to become. The files were safe, the board agreed. The threats had paused for now. But Rose knew one truth. This war was far from over. And when Victor looked at her, she realized she was ready. More than ready. She was present. The door clicked shut behind him. She leaned back. The horizon glowed with city lights beneath a velvet night. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Rose walked into the executive suite the next morning and noticed something odd: no veterans at the door, no protective presence. Comforting, until she realized how empty it felt. The warnings hadn't stopped, they had simply retreated. She opened her laptop, fingers returning to autopilot, but paused when a new folder appeared in her secure drive labeled, "For Rose." Inside were two files, one video clip showing Maddox's private compound in rural Virginia, and a document, an internal memo with her grandfather's signature, linking Kingsley Corp to political payouts decades ago. Her breath caught. She knew exactly who sent it. Victor. He'd moved faster than she expected. She found him downstairs by the service elevator, leaning against a wall, phone in hand. "It's there," she said softly. He nodded. "I thought you should know." She studied him, careworn, eyes dark. "What's our next move?" "Control the narrative," he replied. "You can't just reveal this. It'll blow back on us all, shareholders, employees, even valued partners." She frowned. "We're running a company, not hiding a legacy." Victor looked away. "This isn't just legacy, it's law. Public release means investigations, and that means vulnerabilities." She exhaled. "Then we negotiate." "Exactly." They spent the day drafting a plan: staged media leak, preemptive release with legal cover, targeted donations from Kingsley to veteran and whistleblower programs, all designed to show transparency and responsibility. Rose had agreed, but each stroke of keys felt like ritual confession. By 4 p.m., they were ready. She dialed the PR firm and authorized a press release. The veterans returned, cameras absent, but silent solidarity present as she handed each a wallet-sized card. "In case you need our help, Kingsley Corp has your back." Later, Rose and Victor met in that coffee shop once more. Snow had begun again, thick flakes folding in on themselves. They sat at the same corner table. Rose looked at him. "We're going public with everything. Full disclosure." Victor reached across, covering her hand. "Are you ready for the fallout?" She exhaled. "I am." He nodded. "I'll handle security. You handle the story." She smiled sadly. "We're a team." He didn't respond. He paused. "We're a team." The press release hit viral overnight. Kingsley Corp admits to historical political contributions. They're launching a complete transparency initiative. Rose appears on national news, composed, candid, eyes steady. She acknowledges her family's mistakes, promises restitution, and announces new oversight structures with public trust boards. She names Connor Maddox's group as external actors exploiting historical leverage, but avoids naming names pending ongoing legal processes. Behind the calm statements, concern flickers. Share prices drop initially, then stabilize. Discussions erupt in corporate and veteran networks. Some laud her honesty, others doubt how deep she'll go. Victor watches it all from his safe house station, his face lit only by screens. He texts Rose, "They're in, again." She replies, "Not yet." End of 4. 2 days later, Rose arrives at the public ceremony announcing the new Kingsley Trust Fund, a partnership with veterans, whistleblowers, and civic institutions. The crowd includes reporters, community leaders, even one of the veteran contractors from the garage. Rose speaks. Transparency isn't weakness, it's courage. The crowd applauds. Victor stands off stage, hands clasped, watching. He isn't applauding, he's breathing, waiting. Afterwards, as people disperse, General Maddox approaches Rose. Older than she remembered in the footage, with quiet menace in every step. "Miss Kingsley," he says, voice low. "Congratulations." She keeps her tone warm. "Thank you, sir." He nods, looking toward Victor in the wings. "You did well choosing your guardian." Rose's pulse spikes. "He's not just my protector," Maddox's gaze sharpens, "but a good one, worth every risk." He smiles thinly. "Let's hope that loyalty remains." Rose swallows. "Our loyalty is to truth." Maddox inclines his head. "Then we have much to discuss." He walks away before she can respond. Victor steps forward. "He named you." Rose nods. "And I welcomed it." They share a look, commitment renewed, stakes heightened. That night she finds him back in her office. The files are gone, all traces digitally erased. She exhales, tension slipping. "They'll come tomorrow." Victor pauses. "Then we'll be ready." He looks at her, staircase lighting half their faces in shadow. "What's next?" she asks. He hesitates for the first time. "We move forward. Together." She smiles, small but determined. Together. In the dark corridors of Kingsley Tower, cameras spin, guards patrol, doors lock automatically. But deeper, beneath steel and code, Rose and Victor stand watch, not just defending documents, but protecting something more fragile: truth, trust, and each other. The battle for legacy had begun. Rose woke early, before sunrise, the city outside still quiet under a fresh layer of snow. She poured herself coffee and reviewed the day's agenda: community summit at noon, private meeting with government counsel at 4, and an evening fundraiser for the trust fund. She looked up at the framed photo Victor had brought the 3 soldiers, young and full of hope. She found herself tracing his face in the image. Victor appeared at her office door without knocking. He looked sleep-deprived, eyes puffy, dark circles betraying another sleepless night. "We need to move fast," he said. "Maddox is planting his operatives near the fundraiser. He wants us distracted." Rose nodded, heart racing. "Adjust security detail, escalate protective perimeter. Have the veterans sweep our routes." Victor glared at her unchanged schedule. "And you?" She met his gaze. "I finish this summit, then I meet counsel, then I face the public again tonight." He swallowed. "That's 4 major events. They only need one misstep." They moved through the marble halls of Kingsley Tower like co-commanders entering a battlefield. She greeted staff with steady confidence. He flanked her, in plain clothes, scanning every corner. At the lobby vestibule, a veteran quietly slipped her, a discreet tablet loaded with real-time alerts and camera links. She acknowledged him with a nod. This was as much a war as any battlefield, just with higher stakes and no front lines. By noon, the community leaders had gathered at the plaza outside veterans, civic organizers, youth groups, local press. Rose began with her prepared speech. "When I first stared history in the face, I was afraid. But history isn't the enemy, silence is. So today, we build a foundation that thrives on accountability and compassion." She paused. Behind her, Victor stood near the stage, alert. She continued. "I ask every member of this community, if you see something wrong, speak up. If you see injustice, stand against it. We'll have your back." Applause broke. Cameras flashed. Victor saw 2 unfamiliar men in trench coats near the periphery, quiet, watching. He tensed and sent a silent alert to the veterans' radios. Afterward, Rose greeted guests, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries. Victor remained in the background but caught her eye once. She gave him a small smile, trust and urgency mingling there. As she moved to private rooms for the noon briefing, Victor slipped away. At 4 p.m., in a windowed room overlooking the Charles River, Rose sat across from her government counsel and a DOJ liaison. The mood was serious. They reviewed the trust's charter, upcoming audits, and protections under whistleblower law, all standard. But then the liaison asked, "What about the archives?" Rose took a breath. We have physical and digital copies secured off-site. We intend to provide them under subpoena with court oversight. The counsel nodded. Good, but we'll need safe harbor assurances. Anything else? Rose glanced at her watch. Yes, I'd like a review of recent breaches and political pressure. I need to know who is behind this. And I need protection executive and corporate from retaliation. The liaison looked at her. We can assist, but it will delay your public rollout by at least a week. She swallowed. Then do it. They left her standing in the room, the fading light painting resolve on her face. At 7 p.m., she prepared for the fundraiser at the downtown hotel. She chose a deep forest green sheath dress, understated but elegant. Victor joined her in the lobby. His escort of veterans stood silent behind him. It's time, he said. She nodded, smoothing her dress. As they walked in, cameras clicked. Guests smiled, approached for photos, shook hands. Rose glided through them, Victor shadowed, eyes scanning. She paused by the silent auction table displaying a military artifact donated by the trust fund. A man in a dark suit approached her. Miss Kingsley, I'm David Harper. He smiled smooth, practiced. Rose smiled back. Victor noted Harper's hand twitch near his jacket pocket. She shook hands, eyes steady. They moved on. Down the hall, a group of journalists whispered among themselves. One woman asked Rose about the archives. She deflected. We continue to promote transparency, but today is about building future trust. Cameras swiveled to Victor, who stood guard by the exit. He gave Rose a look. Harboring threats in plain sight, another part of the battlefield. In the ballroom, Rose took the stage for her keynote. The crowd hushed. This fund isn't just money, it's a promise. A promise that when you're brave enough to speak truth, your community will speak back. Applause. Tears glistened in a few eyes. Victor scanned the room, saw Harper slipping toward the archive artifact, no urgency, but a survey. Victor turned and whispered to a veteran. The veteran moved silently, intercepting Harper with a polite, "Sir, can I help you?" Rose left the stage and glided to Victor's side. He tried to get close. Victor nodded. Every angle tested tonight. She exhaled. How do we stop it? He looked at her, firm. We don't stop. We remain visible. We win by being larger than their fear. She placed her hand on his arm, a gesture of solidarity. Together? Together. The room swarmed with breakdown socials, silent auctions, small talk. Rose navigated them like a general reviewing troops. Victor stayed nearby, available, unobtrusive. He leaned in softly. They're sending vectors of influence. Whispers in banks, mentions in state offices. She shivered. Then we keep pushing. He nodded. By 10 p.m., they prepared to leave. Rose exited first, escorting donors to valet. Victor brought up the rear. Outside, snow fell again. The cold bit. A black SUV idled at the curb, different from the earlier one. Its windows were too dark. Victor's hand hovered near his jacket. She saw and pressed closer to him. "Back to base?" he asked. She nodded. "And keep me alive." They walked to the SUV, the veterans flanking them. Victor opened her door. She slid in. He paused. "Good night, Miss Kingsley." "Good night, Victor." He turned away briefly before glancing back at her. In his eyes, flicker of something deeper. Trust. And maybe something more. She watched him drop into the front seat facing her and close the door. As the SUV pulled away, Rose stared at the hotel's lit facade receding into the snowy darkness. She thought of the summit, the council room, the fundraiser stage, and the men in trench coats. She sat upright, bracing. Victor reached across and touched her hand. It was steady. She gave his hand a squeeze. The streetlights blurred past. Beyond them lay an invisible battlefield, words, power, hidden hands. Rose felt the weight of her choice. She was no longer just a CEO. She was on the front lines of a war for truth, and beside her, wearing no uniform, carrying silent strength, was Victor Reed. Their greatest battle, the one that would change everything, had only just begun. Rose awoke to a flurry of phone calls. Her secure line buzzed with news. The DOJ liaison had requested more documents. The stock market had reacted mildly positive, and yet Mercer Tech had just filed a private lawsuit naming an anonymous security insider. She poured her morning coffee and stared at the framed photo of Victor in uniform. Whatever came next, they were both committed. She keyed the secure line. "Victor, we have a PR adjustment and a legal update." His voice crackled. "On my way." And within 15 minutes he entered her office, trench coat damp from the morning snow. Rose slid a confidential envelope across the desk. Inside, 2 pages. A cease and desist letter from Mercer Tech's attorneys accusing Kingsley Corp of defamation, and a subpoena from a federal judge demanding Victor's identity and role. Rose felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "They're targeting him." Victor's jaw clenched. "They want to expose me, force you to distance yourself." She leaned forward. "Can we fight this?" He looked at her, eyes sharp. "Yes, but it means going public with who I am." Rose nodded. "Then we do it." An hour later, the vacuum of silence in the boardroom felt radioactive. The board members crowded around the screen, watching Rose reveal Victor's real identity. Former SEAL commander, decorated veteran, security consultant dedicated to protecting values, not corporate profits. She introduced him not as a liability, but as the backbone of the Trust Initiative, their living example that transparency and integrity require sacrifice. There was tension, whispers. Some board members exchanged uneasy glances. Others nodded approvingly. When she finished, Rose asked for a vote. They approved unanimously. Relief washed through her, but she looked at Victor, who stood stiff but resolutely present. Their next move came within 24 hours. A press conference was arranged at Veterans Hall in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Rose and Victor stood side by side on a small stage. Cameras clicked. Rose spoke first. "I promise truth. This man embodies it." Then she stepped aside. Victor's voice was quieter, steadier, more measured. "My name is Victor Reed. I served my country overseas. Now I serve my community through transparency and service. I stand with Rose and Kingsley Corp because integrity isn't a slogan." He told a brief story of the fire rescue, of protecting the archives, of vigilance in the silent corridors. The room responded with hushed applause. Veterans and advocates rose to their feet. Media scribes took notes, whispered. This wasn't just a defensive move, it felt like redemption. Back in the SUV heading downtown, Rose watched Victor's reflection in the tinted window. "You did that beautifully." He glanced at her. "We did." She offered a small smile. "Yes, we will continue doing it." The SUV rolled to a stop, and she stepped out to meet an older man in a tailored suit. Congressman Ellis Grant, chair of the Government Oversight Committee. He shook her hand firmly. "Rose, Victor, your transparency has changed this process. We're clearing a path for clean audits." He nodded at Victor. "And a veteran-led security council for state agencies." Victor inclined his head. "Happy to help." Rose met the congressman's gaze. "Thank you. We intend to lead with honesty." Grant smiled thinly. "Then you'll have our support and our scrutiny." They left to the waiting press, cameras buzzing again. That night, Victor visited the Veterans Center where Kingsley Trust Fund hosted weekly gatherings. He slipped into the back of the room as Rose addressed a small group about the new scholarship program. When she finished, she looked back and found Victor seated, no flash, no announcement, just present. She nodded. He met her eye, offered a respectful salute. She returned it softly. After the meeting, she joined him. They walked through the center's hallway, photos of veterans, desert deployments, care packages handed out. She paused by one image of him in uniform. "They've accepted you." He looked down. "They did." She touched his arm. "Then maybe we can finally rest." His lips curved. "Maybe." Over the next 2 days, the legal threats eased. Mercer Tech withdrew suit, citing corporate pressure. DOJ reviewed the archive materials, publicly commended Kingsley Corp in a statement. The trust fund gained dozens of new donors, but Rose noticed something else, Victor's expression darkening. He was quiet at headquarters, inbox untouched, appearances scheduled but delayed. When she asked him, he said only, "I'm processing." One afternoon, she found him in the old storage vault, empty now, but still echoing with past threats. He sat on the floor, cross-legged, silent. She sat beside him. "What are you feeling?" He closed his eyes. "Alone." She reached for him. "You're not." He opened his eyes, looked at her. "I'm exposed in a way I never wanted. Public now, with everything that entails. I don't know who else will come after me." Rose held his hand. "But they'll come for both of us, which means we do this together." He nodded. They hugged, small and quiet, holding on to each other in the hollow silence of a room built to hold secrets. No words needed. Their alliance had weathered fire, data breaches, legal threats. Now it stood on the cusp of acceptance and danger. But standing there, holding him in the echoing vault, Rose understood a truth. Trust isn't built in safety, it's forged in the vulnerabilities you share. They walked out together, side by side, into cold afternoon light. Whatever lay ahead, a lawsuit, corporate retaliation, deeper conspiracies, they would meet it as one. Because standing alone left you exposed. Together, they created steel. Their greatest test was not over. But this time, Rose Kingsley knew she didn't have to face it on her own, and that made all the difference. The dawn came cautiously, as if the world was holding its breath. Rose Kingsley touched the framed photo of Victor with a trembling hand, remembering the oath he'd taken years ago, an oath now made public. Today was the National Security Summit, and she was to speak alongside Congressman Grant and Victor himself. In the mirror ballroom of the State House, polished wood beams glistened under chandeliers, reflecting the weight of what was at stake. Rose and Victor arrived separately, his presence subtle but firm. Hers commanded the room. They stepped onto the raised dais side by side. Rose spoke first. "We stand at a crossroads where business and security intersect. Transparency isn't just a principle, it's our shield." She spoke of archive revelations and trust funds, but her gaze never left Victor. When she motioned for him to speak, the room shifted. He addressed the audience with calm authority. "My service didn't end at discharge, nor did my duty begin and end with military service. Security is a continuous responsibility, and corporate transparency plays a large role in national stability." His words struck a chord. Older veterans nodded. Security experts leaned forward. Cameras captured every second. After their speeches, they mingled through the crowd. Policy advisors, veterans groups, cybersecurity specialists. Congressman Grant introduced them to Admiral Jill Conway, retired SEA command, consultant to DHS. Her handshake was firm. "We need more people like you," she said to Victor. He nodded. "Then I'll keep going." Rose watched the interaction, pride welling. But as they talked, a young journalist slipped in, voice hushed. "Miss Kingsley, I understand you've decided not to press charges against Mercer Tech?" She paused. The reporter recorded. "We believe reconciliation is more powerful than retribution, and we believe reform, not revenge, defines our path forward." Another flash of cameras. Rose held her posture but felt the question echo like a test. Victor slipped an arm around her back, silent support. They ended the summit in the hallway, the crowd thinning. Victor noticed the cornices near the service panels flicker. He raised a finger. "Engineering feed," he whispered. She nodded. When the hallway cleared, they ducked into a small alcove. He pointed to a maintenance door left ajar. Inside, wiring harnesses and service panels, and a small black sensor taped behind a panel labeled Camera 14B. Victor's voice dropped. "They're watching us." Rose's breath caught, but her voice remained steady. "Then let them watch, witness accountability." At noon, they returned to Kingsley Tower for a security debrief. The veterans gathered, stands of rifles and radios lining the temporary command center. Rose watched Victor run through the briefing. Room entry protocols, surge schedules, camera sweeps, all designed to ensure they wouldn't be caught unaware again. She saw the veterans listening, respect evident they were soldiering under a new leader with no rank insignia, but with undeniable presence. Later, she joined him in her office. He closed the blinds. "Why do they care so much?" she asked. "Because transparency strips power." He considered. "The archives, the trust fund, the exposure. It's an uncomfortable mirror for people who like the old shadows." She swallowed. "What happens when they come for us again?" He paused, then placed a folder on her desk. Contingency plans, off-site retreats, temporary reassignments, mental health support lines. She smiled sadly. Even superheroes need rest. He reached out, brushing her hand. Even CEOs and ex-SEALs. By evening, they hosted a private dinner for a small group of veteran leaders and policy advisors. The table was dressed simply: roast chicken, roasted root vegetables, apple pie, comfort food, and candlelight. Their conversation ranged from PTSD resources to cybersecurity collaboration to rebuilding trust in government. Victor listened more than he spoke, but when he did, his words held quiet gravity. Healing takes transparency, accountability, and a promise kept. Rose looked around the table at men and women nodding. This was their legacy emerging from ashes. After dinner, Rose and Victor walked out among snow-swept cobblestones. The air bit cold, but she lifted her face. Tonight felt right. He glanced sideways. "They're with us. For now." She nodded. "Now we need allies." He looked down at her. "We have allies." She leaned in, voice soft. "Trust me the same way I trust you." He closed his eyes. "I do." They reached the SUV where the veterans waited. Victor opened Rose's door. "Good night, Miss Kingsley." She stepped inside. He paused. "Victor." "Yes?" "Thank you." He didn't respond, just walked away into the dark with quiet confidence. Back in her apartment, Rose found a note slipped under her door. "You are not alone." No signature, but she knew. She folded it, pressed it to her chest. Tomorrow would bring scrutiny, headlines, potential backlash, but for the first time she felt anchored, not only by her own resolve, but by the man who'd walked through fire for her, and by the community they'd begun to build together. Their battle continued, but tonight, they'd won a moment of peace. And in that peace, both Rose and Victor found something they'd lost long ago. The belief that truth, once embraced, can light the darkest night. A late winter storm rolled into Boston, snow swirling so thick it erased the horizon. Rose awoke to the sound of her secure phone buzzing. It was Victor. Mercer Tech is launching a counter-narrative. Full-page ads, victimized by a rogue employee, they claim. And internal sources are planting stories about you settling for publicity rather than real reform, Rose braced. They'd warned this would come. They'll try to discredit me, she said. Let them, Victor replied. We built our integrity in daylight. She silenced the phone and stared at the framed photo. Victor standing tall in uniform, resolute. It reminded her why they fought. She dressed quickly, tension coiling in her shoulders. Today would be a test. By mid-morning, the PR storm began. Mercer Tech's ads flooded the business sections, accusing Kingsley Corp of orchestrating a staged exposure. Podcasts discussed whether Rose had gone too far. Even some veteran pundits questioned Victor's motives. Rose paced in her office, reviewing Victor's security protocols. He entered unannounced, coat dusted with snow. They're pushing hard, he said. Rose swallowed. We need to hit back, he shook his head. Not by fighting mud. We respond with action. She frowned. What action? He handed her a proposal. Rose would announce a new community, serving initiative free cybersecurity workshops for small businesses and veteran homes, led by the Kingsley Veteran Alliance. Transparent, proactive, public good, no words but deeds. They can't spin that, he said. She studied it, then nodded. We'll do it. By noon, she convened the veterans and key staff in the tower's lower-level auditorium. She stood on stage, Victor beside her. Cameras were minimal internal streams only. She spoke clearly about the smear campaign and the need to stand taller in times of mud. Victor outlined the workshops and vet mentors, emphasizing action over accusations. The veterans applauded. A hush fell as she drove home the message. We don't retaliate. We rebuild. We serve. They launched the workshops that afternoon at a local community center. Victor taught device safety to seniors. Rose met with small business owners concerned about data breaches. At one station, a woman named Linda pressed Rose's hand. This matters, she said. Rose saw Victor in the corner, quietly handing out flyers, gently guiding a worried vet through a laptop screen. It was real work, no cameras, no speeches. She smiled because she recognized something. Truth lived in these small acts. That evening, back in the tower, Rose walked through the empty office corridors and found Victor at the secure command center. He looked up, weathered but steady. She handed him a mug of coffee. They can't smear this. He took a sip. They might try, she interrupted. Then we stay busy. He nodded, eyes drifting to the monitors. Every story, every claim, every doubt its noise. We drown it with service. They stayed late, reviewing plans, mapping out next week's workshop schedules and veteran mentorship pairings. By midnight, the building was silent. Snow trailed past the window. Rose leaned back. I never thought this would be comfortable. Victor looked at her. Truth rarely is, but maybe it can be chosen. She met his gaze. I choose it. The next morning, headlines shifted. Instead of mud, regional news outlets spotlighted the workshop's photos of seniors leaning over laptops, veterans speaking into ears and ears listening intently. Even Mercer-Tech's campaign was critiqued as desperate. That afternoon, Rose met with Congressman Grant, who gave her a private document, a cleared background check from the Oversight Committee concluding no wrongdoing on her part. White noise diminished. Trust broadened, but victory remained provisional. Late afternoon, Rose found a letter slipped beneath her door. No return address, just one line. Not everyone appreciates light. Beware those who fear it. She pressed it to her chest. Victor stood in the shadow of the corridor. She looked at him, voice soft. They're not done. He nodded. Then neither are we. They exited together under streetlights, reflected on wet pavement, heads high. She slipped her hand into his. Together, she whispered. He squeezed back. Always together. Their fight had moved from boardrooms and headlines into communities and kitchens, a quieter battle, but deeper. And in that shared purpose, they found strength, even purpose. Tonight, they would rest. Tomorrow, the war for light continued. Their greatest victory wasn't in exposing lies, it was in showing how quiet service can outshine the loudest scandals. Spring's thaw crept into Boston with a soft promise. But Rose woke to tension no melting snow could wash away. An encrypted message glowed on her secure line, a scanned photo of her father's old letterhead stamped with payment receipts to lobbyists. It came with one word, leaks. She drew a sharp breath. The final phase had begun. Victor appeared, coffee in hand, calm but alert. They're using the past against us, he said. Rose folded her hands. They think they can buy our collapse. Victor nodded. Then we show them we can stand on history, not just bury it. And, by mid-morning, they held a silent session in the private war room, a small fold-out table, flickering monitors, Victor's veterans standing guard. Rose brought in legal counsel, PR, security team. They laid the evidence, new documents proving political influence from her grandfather's era, handed to local officials. Rose stepped forward. We preempt this leak with context, not denial. We launched the Kingsley Historical Transparency Initiative Complete Release of Archives, with expert commentary. Murmurs filled the room. Victor interjected. We pair it with community dialogue panels. We invite historians, civic leaders, everyday citizens. We make this public reckoning. Rose glowed with determination. Yes, we take ownership of our full history. No spin. By noon they announced the initiative. A press release was scheduled at the Public Library's Grand Hall. Rose and Victor walked through vendor booths, displaying archives, yellowed contracts, hand-signed letters, faded photos. Crowds gathered. Rose took the podium. Our history matters, the truth matters. Transparency isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. She introduced a panel of experts. Victor stood to the side, eyes scanning the audience. Questions came. Was she hiding truth? Was this damage control? She answered with grace. We're inviting accountability, not hiding from it. Applause followed. After the panel, Rose and Victor escorted elderly residents to booths. Some recognized signatures they knew. Tears touched their eyes. One man said, "You didn't have to do this." Rose squeezed his hand. "I had to." Victor stood back, watching her speak truth with such grace it made steel feel warm. He slipped away momentarily to check the crowd, and then returned to her side. "They're watching," he said softly. She nodded, but didn't flinch. That evening, as dusk settled, Rose sat alone in her office reviewing financials. The stock had dipped slightly but stabilized. PR buzzed positive. Still, she felt unsettled. Victor entered with 2 mugs of chamomile tea. "Your favorites," he said. She accepted and smiled. "Thank you." He leaned against her desk. "Tomorrow we hold the community panels, and then we let them decide who we are." He nodded. "Together." She paused and said quietly, "I don't just trust your judgment, Vic. I believe in you." He looked at her, vulnerable for a moment. "Then let's not fail them." The next day dawned clear. Community panels filled the library's meeting rooms, residents, activists, historians, media. Rose and Victor split to host 2 rooms. Rose handled the emotional accounts families hurt by past deals. Her voice wavered at first, but steadied as empathy warmed her tone. Victor ran the other room, data-focused, law-focused answers, crisp, protective. Midway through, a man stood. "My grandmother lost her home because of deals like these." His voice cracked. Rose stepped in, voice firm. "We ask forgiveness and offer remedies. The Kingsley Trust Fund will provide grants to those affected." The room hushed. Victor watched from across the hallway, eyes glistening. She was building more than transparency, she was repairing trust. At lunch, they met in the library cafe. Exhausted but standing, she brought 2 sandwiches and water. They ate in silence, comforted by each other's presence. He took her hand. "We did good." She nodded. "We did more than good." She looked at the bustling library through the window. "This is work worth doing." He kissed her hand. "The final leaks won't break us." She replied softly, "Because we own our truth." That night, back at Kingsley Tower, Rose reviewed security footage from building entry. Victor stood beside her. He frowned, pausing on a frame. A familiar face in photo, someone they'd seen before near the fundraiser, watching too intently. "He's back," Victor said. "They sent him." Rose stiffened. "Don't act yet." Victor lowered his voice. "He's constant surveillance. We need to know why." She nodded. "Then we watch back." They spent hours tracing the man's movement across Boston, footage from Civic Hall earlier to a coffee shop across from her apartment. Rose felt fatigue, but adrenaline shored her resolve. They flagged his identity as a third-party investigator, likely hired by Mercer Tech or Maddox. She allowed herself a small win. At least they saw him before he struck. Victor tapped a path on the floor plan. "He's silent, cautious, probably not armed yet. We confront him later, carefully." Rose took a final sip of tea. "I need rest." Victor reached for her. "Then rest. I'm awake." She softened. "I trust you." He nodded, and she left. He stayed, monitoring cameras until last guard left. Then he placed a gentle hand on her photo on the wall, whispering to himself. Somewhere between dawn leaks and midnight watchers, he carried the weight so she could lead. Their battle had awakened emotional wounds, but also community healing. They'd reclaimed history, rebuilt trust, and strengthened resolve. The next wave, though, felt colder, closer. And tonight, as snow drifted outside her window, neither of them slept quite soundly. The war for legacy and truth had sharpened, but so had their unity, and that, Rose believed, would win the day. The trees lining Boston Common were budding green when Rose Kingsley stepped onto the makeshift stage, erected for the celebration of the Kingsley Transparency Initiative's first anniversary. The early spring air carried the scent of new beginnings, but beneath it lay the memory of snowstorms and dark corridors where trust was tested. She wore a simple navy suit, no jewelry except a small veteran's trust pin. Victor stood beside her, silent sentinel in a dark overcoat. They were no longer just CEO and protector. They had forged a shared purpose, a bond stronger than any threat. Rose began. "1 year ago, I stood before this community and made a promise to be transparent, accountable, to lead with truth even when truth felt heavy." She paused, gazing at the crowd. Veterans, civic leaders, families, employees. "And we learned together that transparency isn't a one-time act. It's a daily choice." Applause rippled through the crowd. Victor noticed a row of former veterans nodding in agreement. She continued, "Today we honor not just our progress, but the people who made it possible, those who spoke up, those who demanded better, those who stood by truth, even in silence." She stepped to Victor, "And this man," she said, voice steady, "stood by me every step of the way. Without him, there would be no transformation." The crowd cheered. Victor offered a rare smile. As they walked down into the crowd, Rose held his arm. They passed booths showing before and after results, restored homes, scholarship recipients, cybersecurity graduates. Children in matching blue Kingsley hats repeated, "Thank you," as they passed. Rose felt her throat tighten. They came to a booth displaying the faded archives they had released. An elder woman gently shared, "You gave us back our dignity." Rose nodded, tears welling. Victor squeezed her shoulder. They found Congressman Grant and Admiral Conway by the stage. Grant said quietly, "This is more than a corporate initiative. It's a movement." Conway nodded. "You've set a precedent, one. I hope others follow." Victor's eyes shifted to the edge of the crowd, scanning faces. His training never rested. He spotted a man he recognized, the silent observer from the library, now standing respectfully, not threatening. Victor relaxed slightly, relief washing over him. Later, they retreated to a courtyard where veterans shared stories of impact, and a local jazz quartet played in the background. A veteran with PTSD spoke of feeling heard after attending workshops. Rose listened, filled with pride and humility. Victor spoke softly with a former Marine who had become a cybersecurity volunteer. Their shared eyes reflected respect and shared purpose. As the sun dipped, Rose and Victor walked to the far edge of the park. She looked over the city skyline, tinted gold. "We did it." He paused, voice low. "We survived everything they threw at us." She leaned on his shoulder. "More than survived, we built something real." He turned to look at her, wind gently blowing her hair. They shared a silent moment, the promise of new seasons in their eyes. Victor cleared his throat. "There's one more thing." Rose raised an eyebrow. He pulled something from his coat, a small case. She opened it gently to reveal a simple silver band. "For what comes next," he said. Rose's breath caught. She looked up at him, tears brightening her eyes. "I don't know what comes next," she whispered. He smiled gently. "Whatever we choose, together." She nodded, voice clear. "Yes, together." They embraced, crowd clapping at a distance, but they heard only each other. The city lights blinked on. They walked back toward the building of Kingsley Corp, hand in hand. The restored archives and veteran trust fund had altered the company's fate, but for them, tonight was more than a corporate milestone. It was personal redemption, it was a shared vow, and it was the beginning of a new journey. They reached the tower's front steps. Victor paused. Rose looked at the path they'd walked, through fire, through leaks, through legal battles and community trust. She pressed his hand. "We're ready." He opened the building door and turned. "Together?" She smiled softly. "Always." They stepped inside. Behind them, the city glowed with promise. And ahead, the future, their future, waited unwritten, but theirs to shape. Their greatest story wasn't about victory over enemies. It was about rebuilding trust, restoring dignity, and finding love in unexpected places. And as Boston's lights reflected in their eyes, it was clear this was just the first chapter of everything they would become. This story reminds us that true kindness needs no audience, no reward, only the quiet courage to do what's right. Victor's act of helping Rose, despite her prejudice, reveals how one man's silent dignity can challenge deep-rooted bias. It's a reminder that the most powerful form of justice often comes not from courts or laws, but from ordinary people choosing compassion over bitterness. His motivation wasn't glory, it was his daughter's future. In a world full of judgment, may we raise children who witness more empathy than hate.